Hello everybody, I thought I'd do another video on pistol crossbows because I did a video sort of about a week or two ago on these and it was a bit controversial. A lot of people didn't agree with me, so I thought I'd clarify sort of what I meant on that video, and this video is more about if you did want to use a pistol crossbow for a shit hits the fan sort of scenario, survival scenario, how could you modify that pistol crossbow to be a bit better for it. So, my main reasoning is that you could use a pistol crossbow, but it's a lot more limited when why not just get a full-size crossbow? That's my kind of argument. But if you did really want to use these, there are things you can do to make them better. Firstly, if you see at the front where that bow is, you'll notice there's some dead space in front of the bow there, and it's pretty tight in at the back, if I can get that in frame, there. So space there, no space there. What you want to do is take the bolt out as far as it will go to the front, put more stuff behind the bow to bring it forward, so there's different things you can use, sort of you could cut a block of wood to the right size or whatever. And by doing that, what you do is increase the draw weight, essentially the tension on the bow, because the further forward the bow is, obviously it has to go a little bit extra to cock, and then the bow bends a bit further when the bowstring's back that far. So that will give you a bit of extra power, which is always a plus. Some people do it by cutting another bow and putting it behind the front one. I've seen a video as well where somebody's turned one of these bows the reverse way. It cocks, but obviously it would damage the bow quite quickly doing that. So I'd say for the power increase it's not worth doing that. So that's one of the things you can do. Underneath here, if you look closely, you can see, if I can get it in frame, there's a 20mm rail, so you could install a red dot or some sort of small type scope on there. I mean, I don't think a scope's really that necessary other than clarity of a target, because obviously these bows aren't very accurate over long range, so the scope isn't useful for that reason. But you know, you could have an optic that you find a bit more accurate than using the standard optics on this, the iron sight, although the iron sights aren't too bad. At least with cocking it, it does cock with these two, so when you do pull it back and cock it, you'll have an evenly cocked string. So as long as the actual bow is in straight there, that means you'll get as good as accuracy out of it as you can get. Now the big thing comes down to bolts really of these. A lot of the performance you get out of it will vary from bolt to bolt. So what you ideally want, I found to be best in my experience, is the aluminium bolts or alloy bolts. So you get those bolts, and what you want to do is put a better head on them, because by default they've kind of got a bullet tip, sort of field tip head, but it's not that sharp. And one of the big problems with pistol crossbows, at least when it comes to a survival situation, if you had a target and you wanted to penetrate them, is thick clothing or something like that, a thick hide could stop the bolt. So what you'd want to do is change the bolt's head so it has the maximum piercing potential possible. Now I've got another video that you might have seen before where Tumbo1984 sent me a pistol crossbow bolt and a full size one. The full size one worked better because it was a more powerful crossbow, but the pistol crossbow bolt where it had like a file on the top he'd sharpen like that, and that meant it almost went through my Kevlar vest. With some Kevlar vests it would go straight through, but regardless that means you optimise your piercing potential of the bolt. Problem, as said, with a lot of these bolts is that because the tip's not that sharp and the bolt doesn't have much mass, with the energy the pistol crossbow can give it, it doesn't manage to penetrate things very well at all. So that's another factor you'd want to consider if you did want to use this for a survival situation. You'd have to find some very good bolts for sale, or modify a load of bolts to improve your chances of doing damage with them. So I think that about covers what you can do with these pistol crossbows. As I said, the cocking handle is fine. What some people do, which might be worthwhile, is putting a stock on there. I know by default now you can buy the pistol crossbows which actually have the top loading magazines. I think they cost quite a bit, like about £100 or more. But the ones that come with a red sort of dot sight on it, by standard, a top loading magazine for bolts. It's more like a Chinese repeating crossbow. And putting a sort of M4 type stock on the back, so although that adds a bit of extra length to it, you've at least got the cocking. You know, when you shoulder the bow, you get a bit more accuracy that way. But other than that, there's not much you can do. So bring the bow forward, or maybe put something behind the bow to increase the draw weight. You'll wear your strings out faster, it'll be harder to cock, but it will give you that little bit more power that you really need with one of these. And it's mostly down to just optimising the bolts and getting good bolts. And once you've done that, you should be in a much better scenario, I should imagine, for using a pistol crossbow as a survival tool. So, like I said before, I think my point still stands. I would much rather have probably about, ideally £80, but I don't think you can get the bows of that strength easily now. But either £105 or a bit lower, £105, £120, or a bit lower draw weight than that on a full-size crossbow. I mean, what you can do, I've seen if you wanted to, is get a full-size crossbow without the stock, so you still cock it using the stirrup, but then there's not much else to the crossbow, so that would obviously cut the length down of it a bit more, but you've still got the very wide bow to consider. But apart from that, that's sort of the only way you can really optimise a pistol crossbow.